Carney has just fired a bold new round of tariffs at the United States. Canada is now targeting Meta, Google, Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, IBM, and other major U.S. tech firms. In response, President Trump pulled out of all agreements with Canada and ended negotiations on the spot. So how did things spiral this far? Let's break down this dramatic development step by step. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the notification bell, and like this video to stay informed as we explore the latest shifts in global diplomacy. Trade relations between the U.S. and Canada broke down abruptly on the morning of June 27, 2025. President Donald Trump announced the suspension of the North Atlantic Economic Agreement negotiations in Palm Beach. He declared that Canada's new digital services tax amounted to a direct attack on U.S. innovation. This was the latest clash in a long list of disputes. NAFTA, USMCA transitions, steel and aluminum duties, dairy quotas, and softwood lumber. But the trigger this time? A revenue tax aimed squarely at global tech giants. Ottawa's Bill C-96, effective July 1st, would place a 3% tax on the gross revenue of any company with global earnings above 750 million euros and at least 20 million Canadian dollars earned digitally in Canada. It was seen as a bold unilateral action, taken before the OECD's two-pillar framework had been finalized. Washington quickly labeled it a breach of the USMCA. Within hours, the White House summoned the press and U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai launched a Section 301 investigation, invoking Articles 143 and 1916 of the USMCA. Meanwhile, the Treasury prepared possible tariffs, 25% on Ontario aluminum ingots and phased duties on nickel mats and 5G equipment. But from Canada's point of view, the spark was different. Meta and Google had threatened to block news links to avoid another law, Bill C-18, which demanded news copyright compensation. AWS and Azure began passing data localization costs to users, and OpenAI refused to open Ontario Health AI data to public use. When Mark Carney became Prime Minister in December 2024, he made digital sovereignty a top priority. Bill C-96 was central to that vision. According to a Ministry of Finance study, it would generate 4.1 billion Canadian dollars in the first year and 5.3 billion annually after that, nearly enough to fund Canada's entire AI innovation initiative centered in the Montreal-Waterloo corridor. Carney defended the law, insisting Canada's cloud and AI ecosystem could no longer depend on foreign control. What caught many off guard was how quickly Washington hit back. Trump, in campaign mode, had promised to shield Silicon Valley from global taxes. Letting Canada become the first G7 nation to implement a full digital services tax was a political red line. 4 of 6 members of the USTR's Section 301 committee voted to define the law as a discriminatory tax. If enacted, retaliatory U.S. tariffs could begin within 90 days. The first-round targets include raw aluminum, nickel, AI chipsets, 5G hardware, and even wooden furniture, goods worth $18 billion in 2024 U.S. Markets reacted instantly. Meta shares jumped 4 points at the open. The projected $320 million tax burden seemed manageable thanks to pricing tweaks in U.S. ad packages. Alphabet expected a CAD $540 million hit, but hinted it could be offset if the U.S. Treasury eased data residency rules for cloud contracts. Amazon faced a $1.1 billion blow, directly linked to its Canadian sales. AWS is now reviewing a freeze on its Calgary expansion. IBM and Microsoft, dealing with new Canadian rules on health data storage, are considering adjusting license fees into post-tax discounts. Despite the panic, news of a temporary U.S.-China trade ceasefire later in the day helped soften the blow. Market losses fell from $98 billion to just $14 billion by close. While the macro effects on the U.S. seem mild for now, supply chain disruptions are looming. Oxford Economics estimates a 0.1 percentage point dip in U.S. GDP between 2025 and 2027, with a net loss of 79,000 jobs and a 0.6% CPI increase. The Michigan-Ontario corridor will feel the most pressure. Aluminum body panels and nickel battery components may see cost increases of up to 7%. Canada's outlook is tougher. The Bank of Canada's DSGE model predicts a 0.38% GDP decline, though a weaker loonie may cushion exporters. Inflation could spike by 0.9% in 2026. The auto sector faces a CAD 4.5 billion production loss, metallurgy CAD 1.9 billion, and furniture CAD 1.2 billion. On the legal front, everything is, well, murky. Canada says the OECD framework is delayed and that C96 is simply a temporary bridge toward global standards. The U.S. argues that Canada broke its USMCA commitment to a digital tax moratorium. The case could end up at the USMCA dispute panel or the ICSID arbitration court, with the WTO still paralyzed. Either way, a ruling could take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years, during which tariffs will stay in force. Beyond trade, Canada is flexing military leverage. The Carney cabinet is openly reconsidering its F-35 purchases, possibly favoring the Gripen EF, Eurofighter, or Rafale, prompting urgent lobbying by Lockheed Martin and Pratt & Whitney. Defense bargaining is now being used to hold the line on digital taxation. Meanwhile, Trump wants to pull Canadian aluminum and battery plants into the U.S., backed by Michigan lawmakers who are eager for jobs. Domestically, both leaders face some pretty tricky political dynamics. Trump's pro-tech stance reassures Silicon Valley and sends a strong signal to voters in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. But it also revives tensions with agricultural states like Iowa, which suffered under past tariffs. In Canada, public opinion backs Carney. Many support taxing tech giants and reinvesting that revenue. Still, the Conservative Party is warning the middle class that a U.S. trade fight could cost jobs at home. There are 3 ways this might play out. First, de-escalation. The OECD delays its framework again, Canada voluntarily pulls C96, and the U.S. suspends tariffs without actually activating them. Second, Escalation Section 301 finds harm, and tariffs take full effect after 90 days. Canada responds with 20% tariffs. The Michigan-Ontario supply chain suffers. Third, geopolitical clash, defense and trade merge. If Canada buys Eurofighters, the U.S. could freeze NORAD upgrades, risking Arctic defense readiness. In every case, digital sovereignty has moved from just tech policy into global geopolitics. Canada is on track to become the first G7 country to apply a broad DST. Washington frames it as targeted discrimination against American firms. As the crisis grows, it's no longer just about taxes. It's about data control, AI flow, defense procurement, and election politics. The Carney government is standing firm. The Trump administration won't back down. Even if the OECD moratorium extends, the standoff seems, inevitable. This conflict could rewrite the rules of global tech trade. And so, summer 2025 might be remembered by one phrase. Even the cloud is now subject to customs. If either side wins this battle, it won't just gain taxes. It'll gain control over the infrastructure of the digital age. What do you think about this growing tension between Canada and the U.S.? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, hit the bell, and like the video so you never miss a moment. Thanks for watching.